Well, if you are interested in Wild Dog Winch Challenge and Winch Challenge in general in Victoria, then this one is good for you. So Wild Dogs just wrapped up a few weeks ago. I made 3 videos from that event, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they're just before this, so go and check all them out. And over them 3 videos, I just had a lot of questions about Winch Challenge in general, how to get into it, what are some of the rules, how does the scoring work, and all sorts of questions like that. So I just thought I'd make a video on that just to make it easier, so everyone can watch it and just understand on what actually happens with these things when we go racing. So we'll talk about our results as well, some of the stage results, and yeah, the overall results, the sportsmanship award, and a few other things as well. So yeah, everything about Wild Dogs here. So we'll wrap it all into one video, and hopefully it's informative for you. So first of all, I've got to just say massive thanks to everyone involved in making Wild Dog happen, especially the property owners and Jimbo and his crew. Yeah, they're sort of keeping it all happening. All this stuff happens on private property, so without access to them properties, pretty much we aren't racing. So yeah, having a property like where Wild Dogs held Bindaree there, and having a property owner that's interested in racing, so it's just unreal that we keep getting to go back there, and hopefully that keeps happening in the future for years to come, so we can keep using these things. And also, racing doesn't happen without other competitors, so yeah, like it's awesome to see a fair few cars out there, and also it doesn't happen without marshals as well. So marshals keep an eye on all the stages and do the start and stop times and everything like that. So yeah, without them, again, racing wouldn't happen. So that's awesome, thanks to them. So our results were 2nd overall. That's after 3 days of racing. So we done the Friday, ended up in 3rd, and then we done the Saturday, and then we got pushed back to 5th, and then we done the Sunday, and we climbed back to 2nd. So yeah, like I said in the last video, absolutely wrapped with that result. I didn't expect 2nd place. So to get 2nd is absolutely awesome. So we pushed pretty hard for it. I was going into the event hoping for top 5. That was what I was going to push for. There are some really fast cars out there. Scotty McGill's one of them. He's always at the pointy end. Patrol Doctor and DMAC and Bitters and Rooster and VB Racing, and there's a heap of other guys that are always really at the pointy end. So I had to push pretty hard to make it up there, and fortunately we made it happen and the car held together, because at the end of the day, if you can't keep the car together, you're not going to be finishing anywhere near the top. Like, the main thing is to keep the car together and finish your stages, and then chances are you're going to do pretty well. And then if you want to go that bit further, you just got to push a little bit harder, but also have some finesse and just a bit of luck as well to keep the car together, and that usually makes for somewhat of a good result. So with the sportsmanship award that we won, they give one out at every race. Well, I'm pretty sure it's every race. And this happened on the Friday. It was actually the stage that we rolled on, which was during the day Friday, one of the mega loops. We tipped it on its side. I'll chuck the in-cab footage in now.
Kick up, kick up. Yeah.
Righto, quick, get out.
Turn it off, turn it off.
And then what actually happened after we rolled over, I've actually looked back at the footage. It's sort of hard to see because of the camera angle, but I'll put the next bit of footage in now. And what actually happened is we're rallying along, and it's sort of hard to explain, but like when you're racing, you just got tunnel vision on, and I was just listening to Jesse and he's telling me left, right and whatever, and I'm just driving sort of as fast as I can. And the night stage was also bunted out for the Friday night, and it used a similar course as the Friday day stage, but it just took out one little hard section and a winch, so the Friday night was like a rally loop. So we're rallying along, and then the track that's been there for years, like it had a set of wheel ruts going around a right-hand corner, and there was an arrow on the tree that said turn right. And there was supposed to be a bit of bunting across that, so it turned you left. And when you went left, it was a fresh track, so it just had trees and that pushed down. But I didn't even see it. So I was just listening like, yep, left, right. And then it was, you know, turn right. And then I seen the wheel tracks go around the corner, and I seen the arrow on the tree. And that was it. It was full noise that way. So we actually missed the course. So as we were driving, we kept driving on this track, which was, in the night stage. So it was all arrowed and bunted out. And we both were thinking like, it hasn't had that much use. It looked like a few cars have been through there, maybe when they test ran it or something. But yeah, it didn't have that many marks on it. So we kept driving, and I thought, you know, Jesse said we're on the wrong track, and then I was singing the same thing. And then we got to the bunting, which was the track we were supposed to be on. And I rolled the car back, and I was going to turn around, but this stage was a multiple cars on course. And then I just thought, I'm not turning around when there's multiple cars on course, even though they were leaving in like 5 or 10 minute intervals or something. So chances are no one was coming behind us, but it's still not a chance that I was willing to take. So we just sort of drove up, and like where we come back onto the track, it was just above the winch wall. So we lifted the bunting, I drove under the bunting, back onto the track. We finished the loop.
Oh, get fucked. That was the wrong way back there.
Where?
Way back.
Was it?
Yeah. That's a hill there.
Well, can we go onto the bunting? Yeah. Quick, get in.
And then we got our time, and it was like, I think Scotty was in first, and he like blitzed it. He was real fast on that stage. And I think we were like nearly a minute quicker, and with a rollover as well. And then, you know, we signed it, and we sort of sat there, and, you know, we discussed like, what do we do? And then it just sort of ended up like, I'll just ring Jimbo, the event organizer. So I rang Jimbo, and I said to him, look, this is what's happened. We don't know what to do. I'm happy to take the DNF, because when you do 4 wheels off the course, it's classed as a DNF, which means you just get 20 points. I said, I'm happy to take the DNF, but it was unintentional. Like, we didn't actually, I didn't mean to cut the course, obviously. And he sort of said, all right, well, if you want to rerun it, like, you can rerun it. So I thought, yep, no worries. We'll rerun the stage. I'm happy to do that, as long as everyone else is happy with that. And yeah, that was all good with everyone. So we reran the stage. We still ended up 4th. I took it easy and ended up 4th on that stage. And then I was able to sleep that night, because if I had just taken that win by a minute over Scotty, who was really fast, with a rollover, I don't think I really could have slept at night. I would have had the guiltiest conscience. So that's what we ended up winning the sportsmanship award for. It felt good, but at the end of the day, that's the way it goes. Like, they can't bunt everything, and obviously something or someone had maybe clipped the tree or accidentally driven through it, and the bunting was just not there. But, you know, Jimbo said that he had bunted it. So, and obviously everyone else went on the track he's supposed to go on. So the bunting was obviously there. Someone just accidentally hit it, and then we've come flying through and just, noticed the arrows and the bunting for the night stages and just sent it down there. So that's a story with the Sportsman Award. So yeah, we ended up with a 1st place on stage, 4 2nd place, and a 3rd place on stage. And then we ended up with a lot of times that were just like top 5, top 10. But some of the times were that tight. Like, some of the times we came 2nd by 1 second. So there's only 1 second between 1st and 2nd place on stage. And then, there was a lot of other times where, we were 4th by a couple seconds. So that sort of stuff, if you have to do an extra backup, or, yes, everyone else is making a corner and you have to back up and 3-point turn, or maybe you get stuck and you have to reverse, things like that are game changing when you're only talking a couple seconds between a few positions. So that was not all the stages. Obviously, there were some stages where people just smashed it, but there were definitely some stages that were super tight. So you just had to be on your A game, and that's where the cut and brakes also come in handy, because obviously you can make corners where people are 3-point turning. Most of the time you can just swing around in one turn with the cut and brakes, and that cuts off very important seconds. So after the Friday in third place, the Saturday strategy was to just get through the day. There was a half an hour loop in there, or we got half an hour. Some people were an hour and some people were 25 minutes. So there was this massive loop in there. It was just take it easy on that, just put down a solid time and just drive consistently, because I just wanted to get through the day. And that's where we ended up with no stage podiums on the Saturday. We only got stage podiums on the Friday and the Sunday. So that's where we dropped back from third to fifth. So we didn't push as hard on the Saturday, but we did still put down some solid times. We had a few fourth and fifths or something. So we still drove good. There is a strategy to it as well. So obviously with this many cars driving through the tracks are going to change, especially through like a boggy creek that runs through the bottom section. So the Saturday had pretty much every stage went through this boggy creek. And we sort of didn't really play to that strategy. I was too busy. I don't know. I just was talking to everyone and whatever. We're just enjoying the day, where, you know, on the Sunday we had a bit more of a strategy, and we're looking at stages a bit harder and making the decision on which stages to do first, in case I had a big bog hole, which on the Sunday that actually played into our advantage. But yeah, on the Saturdays, a lot of the creeks got chopped out, and there was some hard winching in the creek where earlier on in the day, some people were driving it, some people were just winching right at the end, you know, but there were spots where we had to just hook up before the bog hole itself and winch the whole way through it. So when you get on stages like that, it's pretty much a guarantee you're never going to get a stage podium, because yeah, some other cars might have to do one short pull and you're stuck with doing a super long pull, or two winches and someone else has only done one. So yeah, with the tracks changing that quick, and yeah, like if you're sort of a bit slack, it can happen where yeah, your times just aren't matching everyone else's because you're stuck with the track being super flogged out. And it did actually rain on the Saturday Arvo about 1 or 2 o'clock, so we still had like 3 or 4 stages to do, and I was just talking to everyone and whatever, and it was sort of like started raining a bit, so that changed it up as well. Some of the tracks just went slick, like ice. It was just enough water on the ground to make it like just pure slick. So, you know, we couldn't push as hard on them stages. But nonetheless, yeah, we still done well. We still drove consistently, and that was the aim of the day. So at Wild Dog this year, they actually brought in a new class, which was called the Weekend Warriors, which seemed to be a pretty big success. So they had a fair bit of interest in that. And what that class was just like a tame race car, I suppose, or most of them were actually pretty sick cars that had some pretty good mods on them. But the main thing being, it didn't actually have to have a roll cage. So without a roll cage, it had to be road registered, and even if it was on Club Rego, you could use it. It just had to be, your logbook had to be filled out. So all legit, things like that. And yeah, they set up another classroom, which is awesome. I think like it's a bit of a gateway into the sport. So some people might not want to go all out and build a dedicated race car, but if you drive like your weekender car in this event and then you get a taste for it, you might think, oh, righto, you know, this is for me. I'll put a cage in my car, or I'll build another car with a cage and race in the main class. So the idea behind that class is they had to keep everyone slow. So they didn't want any gnarly winching or any high speed stuff where they can have accidents. So they ran on pretty much modified courses that we ran on. I think there was only a few, maybe 2 or 3 stages out of 20 that were exactly the same. But other than that, yeah, they had like different winch points. They actually had mandatory winch points. So, you know, you got to a section and they had some bollards there and you had to winch, you had no choice. They had slow points where you had to come down. If it was on a fast downhill, they set up bunting and you had to stop the car in this bunted area, and then you could take off again. So, you know, if there was a bit of a fast run down a hill, it just keeps them slow. They have to come to a stop and then take off again. So there were a few things in place like that just kept it safer for them, like not having roll cages and any of the full-on safety stuff. Yeah, they just didn't want anyone getting out of control and going too fast, which is fully understandable. And at the end of the day, if you want to race the main tracks and the main winch walls, all the big dog stuff that we get to do, then yeah, pretty much you have to have a full spec roll cage. So at least it gives them a taste for it, like I said. And I'm sure, yeah, a lot of people enjoyed it. Like, yeah, going around the pits, there was a lot of people that were pretty keen on it. And it did bring like a whole new crowd of people to the sport, which may not have ever raced, but now they've got a taste for it. So potentially that could grow the sport. You know, more cars means bigger events, and, you know, maybe be able to secure different properties and have more races, or you know, you never know where it can go. So hopefully that's what happens. Hopefully we see a few new fresh cars, and that may allow the sport to expand a little bit bigger in Victoria. So pretty much how stage points work, or overall points work, on a weekend, you know, Wild Dog, this one specifically had 20 stages. So when you start, you know, you pull up in the start box, they call 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You know, you do your stage and you go to the finish box, wherever that might be. Sometimes it's back in the start box. Sometimes it's next to the start box. Sometimes it's in a different location. And you set a time down. So when your time gets started, it's when they say go. And then when it gets finished is when your hubs cross into the finish box and you come to a stop. So then when everyone's done the stage, all the times get put in order from fastest to slowest. And then, you know, first place gets 100 points, second place gets 95, third place gets 92. That may not be exactly that. It's somewhere along those lines, and 89 and 85 and so on and so forth. It goes down until, the points sort of run, or we run out of times. And then that gets added to your overall score. So that's why driving, like if you get 4 stage wins, but you do another 10 stages where you're, you know, in the 20s, you're not really going to place that high. It's all about like consistency. So if you can consistently place in the top 10, even top 5, like you're gonna place really well overall. So it's not all about going hard on one stage and then stuffing it up for the rest of the stages. If you can just finish every stage with a reasonable time, then that consistency will see you like get a pretty good final score. So along with the stages for the weekend, like I said, doesn't matter how many there are, they run a dash for cash. So what that really is just a way for people to keep driving. It's just to keep everyone around, keep everyone busy while they add the scores up, because obviously it's a time-consuming thing to add all the scores up. And then after that, everyone goes and packs up, and then it's presentation, and then we go home. But then on top of that, you have penalties. So each peg that you see that's got bunting on it, or if you knock bunting off a tree, that's 10 points. And you will see, mainly around bog holes, you see it, where they'll put like 4 pegs in a little bunch. Like there'll just be a bunch of 4 pegs in a row. And that's like, you know, they've put it there to stop people potentially doing a hotline. Because in the past, like years ago, you see, you know, they might have 1 peg to bunt off a bog hole, and people are getting stuck in there. And some people just go, right, I'll just take the 1 peg out and I'll do the hotline and I can drive it and I'll get a faster time and I'll just cop that 10-point penalty, and overall I'll be better off. But yeah, these days it's funny, you go to a bog hole or you go somewhere and you see like 4 or 5 pegs in a bunch, and like no one's going to take a 40 or 50-point penalty just to potentially drive something. So if you see a heap together, that's what that is. It's like just a high risk thing. But yeah, each peg's 10 points. You've knocked the bunting down, it's 10 points. There's also there's a heap of other driving rules, like if you go 4 of your wheels off the course outside the bunting, that's a DNF, which means when you DNF, they just stop your time, you stop the course, you get off the course and go back. Your time's not valid, and then you just get 20 points for a DNF. And if you DNS, which is a did not start, that's 0 points. And what they've actually implemented in the recent years is a DNF marker. So in the past, what happened was you could get your DNF points, like your 20 points, by just driving your car to the first obstacle. So, you know, if you damage your car, you're blowing your winch up and you can't fix it, what people were doing is starting a stage and driving it to the first obstacle, getting stuck, and then just DNF the stage. You get your 20 points, and then you go to the next stage and do the same thing. So it's just like you're just scrounging the last few points you can get to try and stay as high as you can in the final placings. But what they've been doing is they've got a DNF marker. So if you don't make it to that marker on that course, you don't get the DNF points. So essentially your DNS, which is 0. And a lot of the markers are actually near the finish box. So, you know, you could potentially do the whole stage and then you could have a stuff up, not get to that DNF marker, and then essentially just get 0 points. So it's a bit more savage, and they let you know in the start box, like that's the DNF marker. So there's also penalty points that the Navi can get you. So the Navi has to have gloves on, or if the driver touches the rope, you have to have gloves on. That's a penalty. As soon as you hook up the hook to the tree trunk, that's considered a live rope, and you can't step over that. That's 10 points. You can't handle the rope when the car's moving. That's also 10 points. When you're running back to the car and you hook the hook to your bull bar, if you can picture, the rope comes out of the fair lead or out of your winch and then back to your winch point on your car. If you are in that loop, that's considered, you know, you are in a live loop. That's also 10 points. And there's a few other things, you know, even if your Navi's pulling the rope out and, you know, they're running around a bog hole and the rope gets tangled on a peg and then they flick the rope and the peg gets knocked out, that's also 10 points. So you got to be careful, like the Navy's got to be careful where they're running with the rope. So there's a fair few rules, but most of them are pretty basic. And once you get your head around, you know, it's pretty straightforward. But I have actually, when I've done a bit of Navy, and it's pretty easy to, if you haven't done it for a while, to step over the rope. I know last time I raced with Sherry, it was like the first thing we done, the first winch, I hooked the rope up and I didn't even realize I did it. And the marshal goes, "Oh, I've got to give you 10 points because you stepped over the rope." And it was like, I didn't even realize. So it's pretty easy to like do something as silly as that. But if you're just thinking about the job, like they're all pretty basic rules. So if you want to see any of the nitty gritty stuff about, you know, all the rules, the classes, the scrutineering forms, the logbook forms, the roll cage drawings and specifications and all that stuff, that's all on the CCDA 4-wheel drive website. So ccda4wheeldrive.com.au. That's also where you apply for your membership. If you want to go to pit crew or race or anything, you need to be a member of the CCDA. The CCDA are like the governing body of racing in Victoria. So they're in charge of the rules and the insurances and all that stuff is all through the CCDA. So the class that we race in, which is Challenge, that's all they've really been running since 2015. There was a bit of a break there from 2010 to 2015 when racing in Victoria didn't happen. And before that, they ran Production and Challenge. So Production class was just like 35-inch tyres, 12-volt single motor winch, and no major modifications. You still have to have the cage and all that. And Challenge is pretty much open, and like it is now, that's all we've really been racing. Up until the Weekend Warrior class got brought in, it was only Challenge class, which is fairly unlimited. So the tyre size is limited to 37s, and there's a few other limitations, but you know, pretty much suspension's unlimited. Like there's a lot of guys running coilovers and bypass shocks. Obviously I run coilovers. The motor is whatever. You know, you can turbo V8s, turbo 6s, conversions, diesels, whatever. The winches are the same. There's some people with 2 motor winches, 4 motor winches. You know, some people with batteries, they've got 2 batteries for the winch. I've got 4 batteries for the winch. Some people have 6 batteries just for the winch. So all that stuff's pretty unlimited. It just has to look like the car that it's supposed to be. So, you know, I can't chop this GQ up and turn it into a buggy and expect to race in Challenge class because it doesn't look like a GQ anymore. So the car has to resemble what it was designed as. That's one of the main things. I think you have to keep most of your chassis. There's some rule there, I can't quite remember. But yeah, like I said, the rest of it's just willy-nilly. And then as far as the safety stuff, you got to have your window nets, your harnesses, your roll cage. It's got to be to the CCDA spec, which they've just updated. You've got to have your isolators and everything else that goes with it, all the safety stuff. If you're actively racing, your car has to be scrutineered once a year. So you get a logbook. You know, when you build your car, you apply for the logbook and you fill out all the details, and then they give you a logbook and a cage sticker mine's up there, to say your cage is certified, it's got a number. That goes in your logbook. And then every year that you're actively racing, it has to get scrutineered by an authorised scrutineer. And then, yeah, they fill in the logbook that it's been yearly scrutineered and all the paperwork. And then before every event, it has to be, at every event, it gets event scrutineered. So like at Wild Dog, we rocked up on the Friday, unpacked our stuff, got our helmets and all the stuff, and then drove up to scrutineer, and then they do an event scrutiny just to make sure everything's good for the event. Because if your car's only getting scrutineered once a year, you could make changes that they don't pick up on until the year after, and you could potentially race with hazards on your car. So that's why they do the event scrutiny, but it's not as it's not really as strict as the yearly. Like the yearly scrutiny is, they put it on the hoist, everything gets looked at, and then the event scrutiny, they just, obviously they're not going to have a hoist there and everything. They've got to get through 40 or 50 cars potentially. So they just have a look over everything, check all your safety stuff, check all your recovery gear and check all the main stuff. And then there's an event scrutiny checklist that they go through at every event, and you've got to check it before the race. It's got a competitor side. So you go through all the things, you tick it all off, and then you take that sheet to the event, go to the event scrutiny, and then they go through and tick it all off and make sure it's all sweet. And then you get your stickers and whatever, slap them all on, and then it's ready to party. So some of the races I have for the year, this year, they've had one in Bagshot, or I think it's Bendigo or somewhere up there. And that's more of a rally, but they had a 2-day race up there, Saturday and Sunday. We've had Wild Dog, and then also right now I'm getting my car ready for Tullarook, which is coming up really fast. I haven't even really looked at my car since Wild Dog, and I've only got 2 days to get it ready. So Tullarook's coming up. Unfortunately, there's no spectators at Tullarook, so you can only get in if you're pit crew or you're racing, or maybe your media pass or something if you're filming or whatever. There was an event, Patrol Apart Challenge. Back in the day, it was Ingle Series. It was round 1 of the Ingle Series at Newgee, but unfortunately they haven't ran that since 2018, I think, or 19. I'm pretty sure 18 was the last year they ran it. I'm not sure really what happened there, but yeah, they stopped running it, and then COVID obviously put a stop to racing as well. We didn't race for a couple of years, but it doesn't look like the Patrol Apart Challenge is coming back at Newgee. Fingers crossed it does. Like I said, I'm not sure what really happened there. Fingers crossed that event come back, because I absolutely love that event. I navied twice at that event, and then I raced it once. At the moment, like I said, they only got the Bendigo one, the rally, and then Wild Dog, and then Tullarook is coming up, and I raced that with Sherry in 2020. I was a navvy for him, and that looks like it's all that's really going to happen this year in Victoria. You have the bigger ones like Cliffhanger, and then the Ultimate 4x4 Challenge, which is in the Outback. That's coming up in September. And then Cliffhanger, I think, is biannual, so I think they ran it last year, so it's not going to be ran until next year. And I'm pretty sure that's it for around down here. I know Queensland have a fair few races. I'm not really up to speed with any of their stuff up there, but I know that they do race a fair bit, which is bloody awesome. I'd honestly love to get up there one day, but the logistics side of it is just the hardest thing, getting the car up there, getting the time off work and organisation. It would be a massive feat. So I don't know when I'll get up there, if I'll get up there. Maybe I can go. I want to go up there for a look, even fly up there and go for a look. So maybe that can happen. Hopefully Wild Dog keeps happening. It's looking like it is. Jimbo does an awesome job, and he's fairly dedicated to the sport. He puts in a lot of hours, him and his team and his wife. And hopefully that keeps coming years to come. I'm looking forward to racing next year. And yeah, hopefully with this Weekend Warrior class, more cars get racing. Maybe the sport can grow a little bit in Victoria, which would only benefit it. And then, yeah, hopefully it's onwards and upwards from there. Well, I'm getting sick of listening to my own voice, and this is going to be painful to edit because I'll get sick of listening to my own voice. So hopefully it wasn't too boring for you. I tried to just put a little bit of info in here for you. Any more info, like I said, ccda4wheeldrive.com.au. Wild Dog Winch Challenge has a Facebook page. I know I was coming up to the event, I was getting a lot of questions about where to get tickets from, and it's on Facebook. So jump on the Wild Dog Winch Challenge Facebook, and that actually has some info on Tullarook about it. If you want to race Tullarook, they're running the weekend warrior class there. Obviously, by the time you see this, it's too late now, but potentially next year. So keep an eye on that, the Wild Dog Wins Challenge Facebook page. And hopefully with this video, you get a little bit better understanding of what actually happens when you're racing. So you might have watched me videos, you might go there and watch what happens. You know, but now hopefully after you watch this, you know, you might go to another race in the future and say, oh, that's why they do that and that's what happens here. And, you know, you get a bit better understanding. Keep an eye out upcoming. I've got the Queen's birthday trip. I've actually still got the Easter videos to edit and put together. And then I'll have 2 coming from Tullarook. So keep an eye out for that. That's all coming up. And we'll see you then.